Are you an investor trying to have more freedom? Well, Jim Sheils has cracked the code. What's going on, Jim?
Yeah, good to see you. Thanks for having me.
It's going to be a good one because you obviously have cracked the code. You know what's going on with respect to real estate investing, mainly in the Southeast, but really all over the United States with respect to making money. And you know how that's the case because you've got two cool books and you're a New York Times bestseller. I like all that.
Yeah, Wall Street Journal never made
Oh,
the New
even
York
better.
Times.
Yeah, even better. Nice.
Yeah.
Real quickly, give us one. There's going to be listeners and viewers out there who are real estate investors who, might have pretty good net worth. Let's say it's $2-3 million, and they need some added value advice from someone who's totally cracked the code. Give one piece of advice to someone in that camp.
Yeah, what I learned from going from many properties is own less of better quality. That's been my big aha over the last 26 years. Own less of better quality. You're probably spinning your wheels less, getting more free time, getting more freedoms, and that's been my big lesson is not the amount of properties I own, but the quality of them because I've reduced the amount, but I have more equity and cash flow than I ever have. So that's been a big lesson for me.
I like that. That's a good lesson right off the bat. Well, first, now that I've mentioned a little bit about you, your books, et cetera. Actually, your books are right behind you as well. If people can't see it. There's a book called Passive Income Playbook, and then also the Family Board Meeting. And the Passive Income Playbook was written by he and his wife. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background, then we'll put in perspective, and then we'll use that as a foundation of jumping off.
Yeah, I started investing in real estate part-time 26 years ago, went into it full-time 25 years ago, and I've never looked back. And real estate investing has opened up every really potential opportunity in my life, made so many adventures for me and my family, charities and causes I care about. And I've always been a niche down type of person. I started for the first 15 years of my career in rehabbing foreclosures and either renting them or selling them. And then about 10 years ago, partnering with my now building partner, I went into new construction. And new construction definitely set a new trajectory where we could scale better, do better properties, get better results in new construction. Again, we're talking residential. Normally, single family, duplexes, and quads has been a magic combination for us. And we work with over 1,000 investors, plus some of the bigger family offices and institutions out there.
I supposed to mention, by the way, my name's Kenneth Frenchman. Jim Sheils, he's a very successful real estate investor, and you can learn a thing or two from him reading his books, et cetera, et cetera. So, all right, let me ask a few more questions. So let's just say you wanted to, okay, let's say you're a brand new investor and you wanted to get into your world of successful investing in real estate. Give us some hints for someone like that.
Yeah, I go into that in my book a lot because a lot of people say, what would you do differently going back, quarter of a century? And again, it goes back to that first piece of advice. When you're first getting into real estate investing, it gets really tempting to go with the absolute cheapest property with some basic numbers that look like it's going to make the most, in cash flow. And I love cash flow. But what I've learned being in the market longer term now, it's planting seeds in the right property and equity growth that's made me the most in most real estate investors. And so these newer investors, I would encourage you to look at getting into less properties of better quality. Because what happens is a lot of newer investors are in this part-time, they're newer, and they get sold into tougher properties in tougher areas that are way more turnover, way more maintenance and repairs, and that can really put them into the white flag surrender at a quick amount of time. And if they would just have looked to save and maybe go into a little bit higher end. I'm not talking high end. I don't do high end properties, but closer to the medium. Areas of good safety and good fundamentals. I think you'll get better results in the long term.
Yeah, I'll play devil's advocate, Jim. Let's say I'm a new investor. I don't have a bunch of dough though, and you're suggesting instead of buying, I'm making this up, whatever, $200,000 property, maybe you're suggesting a $300,000 property, which means that's more cash flow, more down payment, etc. But it's tough. I'm not rich. Let's just say. What then?
Well, here's what I would compare it to is if you got to start, we have to start. And I started the same way. However, there's investors that I know, let's say they have the choice to buy three $100,000 properties
Okay.
that are from 1945, have deferred maintenance, some potentially the cash flow looks higher, or you could buy one $300,000 property in a solid area with, yes, less cash flow, but just really a great core to start with, I would tell you to go with scenario B every time. And this is me talking from experience.
Yeah, and your experience is legit. So help me to understand why Florida, because that's your main market, and then you have other states. But why Florida? Why do you think that's a good market?
Oh, well, I mean, Florida has 29 million people and is still growing. Contrary to what the news says, where you hear a lot of clickbait of Florida's sinking, we still had a net migration of over a 500,000 last year. And some of the upper end markets, parts of Miami and other high end markets where we don't really build or invest, they've seen a softening in the luxury and higher end market. But in the markets that we're building in, we're going for the affordable workforce housing. And there are a lot of job sources
Mm.
coming there, and that's what we still do. So Florida had its population growth, economic growth, and good affordability to it. It was desirable, and there was a need for housing. Along with that, there was really good landlord laws, and that's something I tell everyone to look at. Every state is different. I used to be in California. I don't like investing my money where landlord laws are very unfriendly and tough to get a tenant out if they don't pay.
I would say, by the way, for listeners, viewers out there, you got to do your own research. This is for entertainment purposes. But what I would say is Florida is a awesome market, generally speaking. I guess I'm amplifying what you're saying because there's a need for housing there. I think more so than a lot of different markets. We did a bunch of research for kind of a quasi business partner, and we found the same exact thing that you're saying. I like that kind of that twist. You're looking for employees who are kind of dovetailing off that market, I think. All right, so I get it. So wait a minute. So I think it sounds as though you kind of sold part of your business, and now you're bigger part of a kind of a bigger conglomerate. Can you mention a little bit about that?
About 2.5 years ago, a larger Japanese group called Sumitomo Forestry stepped in and acquired a part of our business, and they're over 330 years old. Warren Buffett is very heavily invested in one of their other conglomerates, not the same one but they used to all be one company. Were broken up in World War II. They've been wonderful to work with, and we have no bank debt. As a mid-sized builder at our size, that's a very good position to be in. And also, a lot of the banks are very skittish right now. So a lot of good builders out there aren't getting financing. We don't have to worry about that. So they were excited with our build to rent model. They are owner of 17 other builders around the U.S., making us, as a combined force, the eighth largest builder in the U.S. But they love build to rent and the program we're doing to support investors. And so we're in a great position to have good ability and capital to build out our projects. We have about 4,000 lots in Florida that we're currently setting and building out. And then we're also able to provide financing. Everyone says right now, oh, you got to wait for rates to drop. We are pre-buying the mortgages down for our clients down to the high threes and low fours right now. So that makes a difference.
Look at my boy Jim. Look at you. That's awesome. You do have a good story because I would think a lot of people are having some hard times nowadays, and many times in general, getting financing. If you have that financing behind you, especially a 300-year-old bank, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Wow. Nice work. So wait a minute, real quickly, tell us a little bit about your two books. Again, one made the USA Today list and one made the Wall Street Journal list. I made a mistake earlier, but tell us a little bit about those.
Yeah. So the Passive Income Playbook is a book that talks about how to leverage new construction real estate to buy back your time and have a great family life. That's what it's done for me. So I go into that story of my 25-year journey, and some of our clients are in the book as well as case studies. And it really goes to how it led us to owning certain types of properties
Mhm.
for long-term generational wealth. And that the efforts can be actually minimized when you go with the right types of properties. I don't like when my efforts are maximized to own property. That's what the opposite of what it's supposed to do. So that's why we called it the passive income playbook. There's always involvement, but you can definitely minimize your involvement with the right properties. And my other book, The Family Boarding, was a passion project, my wife and I, about our family life. We have 5 children, mixture of biological and adoptive, and it just was a simple passion project that all of a sudden got picked up by a lot of big podcasts about 10 years ago. And next thing we know, we hit the Wall Street Journal bestselling. #1 Wall Street Journal. It's a business book about families. So with a couple of short strategies that have helped a lot of entrepreneurs stay grounded at home while they build their business.
I like that. That's cool. That's a cool story because a lot of people think, if you're only a business person, you sometimes neglect the family. And I think it's cool how you kind of integrated the two together and melded the two together. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's been quite a journey. I never thought it'd be something I would do, but it's something I've done. So it's been a great part of the journey for sure.
Sometimes I'm going to ask you, give us one story of someone who's, read your book or learned from some of your trainings who's totally turned their life around. Maybe, I don't know, I'm making this up. Maybe they're whatever, homeless, and because of your teachings, your book or whatever, now they're whatever, a billionaire.
On the real estate side, we have many of people that have a common theme. They're running a business or a practice, and or they have a really high position job in corporate America,
Mhm.
and they want to start planting seeds. And over the last decade, they've planted seeds to us, and it's always fun to get the retirement email. And they say,
Yeah.
"Hey, with this, I've made the right moves. The passive income's where I want it to be. I'm stepping out of my job, or I'm selling my practice. I'm so grateful." So and those are in my book, so you can read about some of those where we've been able to help do that. And then family, there's a common theme of just busy entrepreneurs, professionals that were losing their way at home, and there's just this common reoccurring theme that my wife and I'll get letters or emails on. My childhood friend was just at the Mayo Clinic here near where I lived, and a doctor that he was seeing just for a normal checkup said, "Oh, I'm reading a book called The Family Boarding Meeting about the 18 summers you have with your kids by a guy Jim Sheils." Well, he grew up with me, and he said, "Are you putting me on now? I grew up on the same street as Jim." And he said, "Wow, yeah, and this is a doctor at the Mayo Clinic. I've never met him." And he just said, "Yeah, it's really helping me put a few things in place to make sure I don't miss my kids growing up." So
Oh, dude, nice.
yeah, you hear, and that just I got that news yesterday, literally yesterday. So yeah, you just get these busy,
Yeah.
successful people that need a little bit of a guidance of how to succeed at home. Because let me tell you, there's a lot of information out there how we can succeed in our business, but there's not much of how a busy, driven person can continue to succeed at home. And that's what we tried to put together with this simple little book.
Yeah, work-life balance to me is more important than anything. I mean, sure, you could work 24 hours a day and be successful, but if you've, sacrificed your home living, that's the worst thing you could do if you think about it. 'Cause I know me, for me, I want my legacy to be, much bigger than business. There's no doubt about that. Family, giving to charity, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's awesome. Actually, we here at vastsolutionsgroup.com, where I manage, we basically try to make sure that, we really basically work half the year. We do this thing called, Strategic Coach by Dan Sullivan, where he teaches us to take time off first, basically, and then work, and then you're going to be more efficient because you're working less. And then we combine that basically with E-Myth, Michael Gerber's E-Myth. But anyway, that's awesome. I like that. I like that story. So, what's one thing we have not? By the way, I always forget this. If you want someone to get a hold of you, or if someone wants to get a hold of you, how do they do so, or how do they learn about some of your trainings, or become a client, etc.?
Yeah, just go to passiveincomeplaybook.com. That's a great starting point.
Can you spell that for me?
Actually, you know what? Go to jjplaybook.com. I'm sorry, jjplaybook.com.
Gotcha. Just J, or is it J
J
Y?
J J two J's jjplaybook.com.
Good. Which would probably be hint to be your wife's first name. Yeah, got it.
Jamie.
Uh, yeah, good hint. All right. So before we close up, I'm gonna ask a couple more questions. I'm an
Sure.
inquisitive guy, right? So all this time you've been doing real estate investing. So let's just say I'm gonna play devil's advocate. Someone says, well, I want to invest in crypto instead of real estate, or I want to invest in the market instead of real estate. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I always encourage people to find their path to wealth, whatever they think is best. I just whatever you go into, have a proficiency. If you don't have a proficiency and you're just guessing, then that's very dangerous. What I liked about real estate was two things: is the levers are very. I mean, it is really seventh grade math. It's very straightforward. The fundamentals that you look for, the playbook that you follow. Um, there is a common recipe for success, and that's why 8 out of 10. This was my other thing I liked when I first started this entrepreneurial journey. I knew I wanted to do something on my own. 8 out of 10 millionaires in the U.S. made their money in real estate. 8 out of 10. And that was hard for me to argue. And again, growing up in the Northeast near Wall Street, I had no interest in Wall Street. I didn't like the lifestyle. It never clicked with me. But owning real estate, the tangibility, the levers to pull at a young age, it kind of made sense to me. And so that's what I encourage people. Make sure you understand it. Make sure you can follow the investment. And also, I'm a guy that likes odds. And so when it's 8 out of 10 millionaires are made through real estate, I kind of like those odds. And they were the right choice for me.
Yeah, I think I mean, diversification might be the key, but I think as a using the terminology of foundation, I think real estate as a foundation should be something that someone should look at because I mean, well, there's tax benefits. Here we are, a tax company, right? There's tax benefits. You could feel it and touch it, and usually it's going to go up based on inflation, et cetera. And if you buy low, I mean, hopefully you're going to buy low, do a little bit of improvement. It's going to go up in value. You can sell it for more usually. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
I mean, plus you can leverage it. I mean, there's a lot of benefits in real estate. A lot of people sometimes miss the boat by saying, "Oh, I'm going to do whatever crypto. I'm going to do only invest in the market." It's something that you should at least look at, meaning as an investment, as an overall part of an asset allocation. That's the way I look at it.
I agree. I agree.
Obviously, you agree because you're so darn successful. So, again, what's one thing that we have not talked about here yet that you think can add value to a real estate investor or maybe a W-2 employee who should be thinking about going out to real estate or whatever? Just one little tidbit because you have a lot of good tidbits of added value advice.
The advice that I would give besides own less of better quality
Mm.
is yes, you have to learn. And I encourage you to study and try to find people who've been there, done that to learn from. But eventually, my most important real estate class I ever took, when people say, "What's the best real estate course you ever took?" And I'm like, that is so easy. 432 North M Street. It was my first property I ever bought. And
Mm.
I learned so many things from that first property. You learn what's really meat and potatoes and what's garnish. What really matters? What are the things you need to pay attention to? And what was, oh yeah, I thought this was really important, but it's really not. You can only learn so much from the sidelines. Eventually, you got to get on the playing field and actually owning property. That's where you're going to start to course correct. If you do your basic numbers, you shouldn't be going bankrupt off of one deal. Everyone stays on the sidelines and says, "Oh man, this first duplex has to retire me or it's going to bankrupt me." Probably not going to do either if you do some due diligence and strategy around it. But again, what I would not encourage you to do is to just sit on the sidelines. You're going to learn so much from that first deal, whether you hit home run or not. It's so important.
I'm going to agree with you, but I'm also going to say do it. The only way to I think to really learn is by doing, but at the same time, you have to have someone who's in the car with you, who's driving it. Same thing with real estate. You got to do it with someone who kind of has been there and been where you want to be, so they can maybe give you a couple tips here and there. Because then who knows, you're probably going to succeed because they might be able to supply some information that they wish they would have had back in the day.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, if you'd said, "What's your next tip?" I would have said, "Have action, but get a mentor." I've had a
Yeah.
mentor since I started. Some of them are still the same, some have changed. Now, I mentor people now, but I still have mentors. And mentors are people who care, been there, done that, and will challenge you. And so those are, yeah, priceless.
Well, it's been good little chat with Jim Sheils, author of Passive Income Playbook and also the Family Board Meeting. Once again, how does someone get a hold of you?
Just go to jjplaybook.com. That's where you can learn about our real estate philosophy and also some of our family values.
Love it. Once again, this is Ken French. Thanks, everybody.